Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. I was all looking down there for a moment, ready to share this around. This is a topic today. Those of you that know me know that this is very near and dear to my heart. I have a passion for this topic. We have brought back a long-standing friend of the show, a ruggedly handsome gentleman that just exudes confidence. He has introduced me to two more gentlemen. One that after reading his story, if he was here, I'd give him the biggest man hug I could if he would allow me to. And then another one who has got the same passion as our esteemed guest and a long-standing friend. If I can get all my technology to work for me today, we've brought with us today. And Oscar, if I butcher your last name, I normally ask, but we're going to see how well I do with it. Michelen.
Perfect.
Look at that. We have Oscar Michelen. Jeff, I've butchered his last name so many times. He just accepts the fact that I used to call him one thing, and now I know it's Deskovic. And I used to call him Deskovic and all kinds of other shit. And I just butchered it all up. And then we have with us, a man who, if you could just see it, if you're not watching the live, come watch this live so you can see Andre's smile. It is lighting up. He don't even need lights in the room. My man's making it happen. We brought with us Mr. Andre Brown.
Thank you so much, guys.
You didn't know all that was happening. So gents, thank you. For those of you that did not see the header beforehand, we are talking about exoneration, what that means, what it takes, and also we're going to get into some of the mindset that has to be there. We've talked to Jeff in the past about this. If you don't know Jeff's story, go on to Amazon Prime and go look up Convicted, and you'll see a black and white picture with a ruggedly handsome young man holding up his numbers, and you will learn many, many, many things. Nate's already joined us. Nate, look, get ready for Nate's questions, gents. He's always got good food questions. He might be prepping them all right. Or conviction. I'm sorry, not convicted, conviction. Jeff's See, I told you, Jeff knows he's going to have to fix me. I don't remember shit.
He's on it.
He's always on it, and he knows that I have the brain of a squirrel. I remember a lot of things, and I'm good at what I do, but I forget shit so often. But so go watch Conviction. I recommend it to people all the time, and they probably haven't watched it because I say convicted and not conviction. So jack that shit all the way up. But let's get started here before we get into everything. As always, folks, over my right shoulder. Oh, if my wife's listening, I need her to bring me down my sticker. I left my sticker upstairs. We have over the big board over my right shoulder for Sticker and a Cause. If you've got something you supporting, I don't care if it's from a Girl Scout troop or maybe you're trying to help somebody who needs to be exonerated for a situation, whatever it is, if you reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, even our email is at Gmail, but they're all the Above the Bar podcast, everything. We keep it all very simple. So you can always find us at the Above the Bar podcast. And make sure you reach out to us. You let me know what you've got going on. I'll give you the address where to send it. You send me a sticker. I'll read about you there. I left it sitting upstairs. April 1st was my wife and I's anniversary, and we went axe throwing at this place here in Albany, and it was so cool. And I learned how to throw an axe, and nobody yelled at me for it because I wasn't in the backyard with it was pretty cool. And it was actually wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty fun. And then I watched people playing a version of beer pong with axes, which was pretty neat. So they pinned them on the board and then they were throwing axes at the cups. It was pretty fun. So
axe throwing and drinking. What could go wrong?
Right. Sharp objects with blunt ends.
I mean,
alcohol. This seemed like a perfect combination. It's funny you said, Oscar, I've been shooting my entire, since I was 17 years old when I joined the Marine Corps. I've been shooting guns, and I can't tell you how many times they're like, guns and alcohol don't mix, but guns and axes, fuck it. we're getting at this. Like, how does this not go bad? But we went and did that. So make sure, I'll remember it for next week. I left it upstairs. The other side to this, though, is maybe your media looks like it's been in solitaire for a long time and it needs to be exonerated. So make sure you're reaching out to Media by Dibs. That's DIBS, Media by Dibs. He'll go ahead and he'll take care of you. You mentioned that you're there to belly up to the bar. He's going to give you a free consultation and 10% off your first order. That's Media by Dibs. Before I get into this, where we get ready, we're going to normally open the bar right now. I got to say to the Podfather, Herb, he made the announcement today. We've been on his network. He was podcasting for 12 years. He did this about a year ago. He had to stop because of some medical issues. And he made the announcement today that the Earplug Network, which we've been on since episode 30, and he's the reason that I started podcasting, he really pushed me towards it. He is shutting down his network. We're not going anywhere. We're still going to be out here, and we're looking at actually starting our own network very soon. And it's going to be very military focused. Who would have known with me? But we're going to be starting that. So, but I got to say to the Podfather, I love you, brother. Thank you for setting me on this path, for helping me to get these stories out there for the world to see. And I can't say enough for you. So this is for you, brother. All right, you're done, Herb. So I got you in the round robin. We're going to go around the horn. Andre, I want you to be last because you've got the important story. I'll let everybody kind of announce themselves, say what their part to this was. Oscar, you kick it off, brother.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us on. And the more times we get to tell this story and Jeff's story, the better, so that the world kind of knows what's going on out there. I'm an attorney. We're in Manhattan. We're on Long Island. I'm a litigator. And over the last, I don't know, about 18 to 20 years now, I've been working in wrongful conviction cases, trying to undo some wrongs, mostly from the 90s, the late 90s to the early 2000s, when things were crazy in the 5 boroughs and the surrounding metropolitan area. People getting locked up just for a wrong place, wrong time. It was just ugly. And so one of the cases that I became involved in was Andre's case. Andre and I went to the same high school, different years in the Bronx. So when I got his letter and learned about his case, that certainly hit home for me, because I knew the neighborhood. I knew what was going on at the particular time when Andre got arrested, and recognized that, frankly, it could happen to anybody, particularly back in the day there. And so that kind of moved his story up the pile. We get a lot of letters for help, as you can imagine, Sean. People who are saying, I'm innocent, help me out. My husband's in jail. My brother's in jail. My son's in jail. But when I read that in Andre's narrative, I was like, well, this moved up to the top of the food chain. And so we worked on it. Andre obviously been working on it for over 20 years. He could tell his story. But then we were able to be granted a hearing on some newly discovered evidence that we had. We'll talk about it more in detail. And I had worked with Jeff on a number of cases and asked Jeff to join me as my co-counsel at the hearing. And we were able to establish that Andre's conviction needed to be vacated. And the judge did that back in December of 2022.
Andre, I'm gonna throw. I know Jeff. I'm gonna let Jeff in here in a minute. I got Jeff shit because Jeff's been on here enough times, and we hang out sometimes. So, Andre, I gotta ask this, brother. So this was 23 years ago. You and I are the same age, bro. I was born in 76. We're the same age.
Yes.
You look way younger than me. I don't understand that bullshit, but we're the same age, man. And I it hit home reading your story. I want to kind of put it out there a little bit, and you can correct me on what I got. So 23 years ago, you were wrongly convicted of a double attempted murder. One witness who fingered you. I don't want to say that. The one witness that pointed you out in a lineup that there was 2 others that never got called. Your lawyer at the time has been disbarred.
And then some. Yeah.
Oh, and then some. I didn't read the article I had didn't have the and then some. It just said disbarred for being ineffective. I feel like most of these that I've read and Jeff and I have talked about are always you could set them on top of each other and just swap the names out because the bullshit inside of them is always the same. But the only thing, maybe I didn't get deep enough into the article that I was reading. The biggest piece of evidence for you was physically not capable of doing it.
Yes.
Am I getting anything wrong so far?
No.
Can you help us to understand what was meant by, and if you can't, I understand that because of different stuff, but can you tell us what was meant by physically not capable?
Well, physically not capable meant unable to run at all. I had a serious injury. I was shot in my leg, and because of that, I couldn't run. I had tibia nerve damage and a drop foot that took a very long time for physical therapy and just the healing process to allow me to even walk properly. I walked with a limp for a very long time, and it was improbable and impossible for me to run.
So that's
and the shooter in this case was accused of running after 2 really young guys, and one of them he chased him down. The guy had a head start, and the shooter chased him down a full New York City block, a real long block.
Yes.
And was able to catch up to this guy and then shoot him around the corner. And so that's what the court found, that it would be physically impossible for Andre, to have done that with the nerve damage that he had received just about a year before this crime occurred. So it was still really, really fresh. And that's why his lawyer was ineffective, because he never bothered to tell the jury that.
Like you're walking with a strong limp game.
Yes.
Now, Jeffrey.
But remember, building on the point that Oscar and Andre made, but this is 2 people that were shot. So the perpetrator not only descended the subway and ran, caught up to one, shot, then turned and over, was able to get close enough with the next person to make another shooting. So there would have been no way that he would
get away.
And then run away. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's not miss that part to it.
No, it's a good point.
Jeffrey, what was I know Oscar's, had an emotional connection being from that neighborhood. I know where I grew up in Baltimore, if I was involved in something like this, I would feel the same way. I understand that very clearly. What was your, I guess attraction seems like an odd word to use, but what was the intrigue for you to say, yeah, no, Oscar, I want to be part of this. I see something here.
Because as everyone knows, I was wrongfully incarcerated myself for 16 years before DNA exonerated me. And I started my nonprofit, the Jeff Deskovic Foundation for Justice, using some of the money I got. And we've been able to free a lot of people. But at some point, I became not satisfied with sitting in the front row of the courtroom. I wanted to sit at the defense table, represent some of the clients, make some of the arguments, hence going to law school. Oscar and I's relationship predated my law school career because we're both, we're both in the innocence movement, and so we have a natural affinity and love for each other. And Oscar came to a bunch of advocacy events that I spoke at, and he actually became my mentor and tutor of sorts while I was in law school. Because Oscar, amongst the other stuff he does, is an adjunct professor at a different law school, and he used to tutor me by remote control on the phone while during my law school tenure. Okay.
Not during exams, Sean, but yes, I would.
No, to clarify, prepping for, not on or during, anything. Just to be clear on that. So once shortly, and that continued on while I was.
Hold on, Jeff.
Continued on while I was
Jeff,
prepping.
hold on. I know you, Jeff. I know you because you'll get going. I know you.
I'm going to be quick and end.
No, hold on. I need to verify now. Was he in your earpiece going, look, man, this says the party of the first part is not party to the second part, but we're having a party. Is that what it was? Tell me
It
now.
would have been very funny if it was, but that would have ended up costing him his license and probably stopped him from getting one. So no, we did not, in fact, do that.
And we've got,
Never
and look,
went
if
to
you're
the
listening
line.
to us, if you're listening to this, you can, for the first time, you're not watching the live. If you're interested in getting involved to help people like Andre, there is a Patreon that Jeffrey has set up, and it's patreon.com/Deskovic, which is Deskovic. You can, put funds towards this. You might say, well, why would I do that? Who gives a crap? Let me explain it real simple. It can happen to anyone, especially in today's world. Jeff and I have been involved together for about 2 years, maybe almost coming up on 3. We've been doing the show for 3 years in June. And Jeff was one of my early guests. And I've been to events. I promise you that this type of heinous government crime, call it what it is a government crime, does not know color, does not know status, region. It's not a New York thing. Jeff just happens to be in New York, and I've met him, but we've been to events together, and guess what? They look like everybody. They look like anyone. This is just poor legal. And I know here in New York, we hear all this bullshit about, oh, you need to change the, this, that, and the other. Listen to me. If you can't get it right, nobody should be going away.
Right. And, you said something really important, Sean, at the beginning, which was that you could pile these cases up on top of each other and you see the pattern. 100%. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's so much similarity. Of course, all the facts are different. Andre was physically incapable of running. That's unique to his case, but his crappy lawyering was not unique to his case.
That's every one of them.
Is the DA not looking at other evidence is not unique. A judge throwing away the book. All of that stuff.
But just to wrap up what I was saying, just when Oscar called me shortly after I got my law license, he calls me up all excited, and he knows I've got the license like 2 days ago, and he says, "Are you ready for your first case?" And I'm like, hell yeah! And Oscar's one of the best in the business. I mean, how many people is it? Is it 8? Is it 9? What's the number?
It's actually 9.
9. So when I got the chance to work alongside Oscar, and by the way, Oscar's an advisory board member of my foundation too. So to get a chance to work next to him, it was kind of a no-brainer. So Oscar was on the case without me for about 4 years, and then when I entered work with him for about 1.5 years.
You got it, and you made it happen at that point. I mean, you came on, and I mean, now it happened.
Yeah, come on, stop it, man. You're
gonna I love you, brother.
Yeah,
I will say this. It was for me. And I think even for the judge, it's an inspiration. Yeah. And, Jeff, even though he didn't testify, his sitting there is testimony, like you said, Sean, that this happens to people. And, from, as you said, all across the spectrum, women, Black, white, Latino, poor mostly.
Always.
But that goes with the ability to pay for, decent representation. Right. But, other than that common denominator, the other common denominators, you see a lot of the same problems in these cases. And Jeff sitting there every day is like, you just got to point, this, we know this happens because look at the man sitting next to me right here.
So, right. And what's so clear about Andre's case, I mean, look, there's the medical angle. The alternative suspect who was a spitting image of Andre was located. We came up with a couple of witnesses who ID'd him, and those people's names appeared in the record before. So it's not like they came out of nowhere. And that was corroborated by ballistics. There was actually 3 shootings. So this was a drug turf here. So all of that stuff was just so clear of Andre's innocence. And Oscar, being a lawyer, was able to articulate all of that to me in like 3.5 minutes.
Wow.
And again, that was the clincher right there. And I know he's not going to waste his time on a case where someone is, you have to get up very, very early in the morning to fool him on an innocence claim.
Now, Andre, So I want to kind of hear. So 23 years, brother. And if I dig it, Scabs, man, I apologize. That's not the goal here. But what was so? Now you said it already. So you had been shot before. So
Yes,
let's call things how they are. You had been around a little bit of dirt.
of course,
So
of course.
that kind of brings up, hey, this guy's got charges. He's been around some things, but this wasn't yours. When you realize that you've got to go there and this is where you're going to be. And from what I know of New York State, they like to move you around often. That you won't stay any one place too long. What was that like for you? You know, when you're in that fight, I'm trying to think of the right way. I guess the best way to put it is when you realized it, like, hey, this is going to happen. How did you prepare mentally for that?
First of all, there is no preparation for that.
Okay.
You and the audience at large have to be able to understand that there's no preparation for going to prison. There's no preparation for preparing for the dangerous realms of gang violence, the turf continuously struggle of the fighting, the corrupt officers, the endangered species that I became in there.
What do you mean?
What I mean by that is individuals like myself, we usually become extinct because we become prey. And I refuse to join a gang. I refuse to join a sect. I refuse to do anything but fight as hard as I could for my freedom.
So and I've known a few folks, even my old man did a 1-year clip. He was guilty. He
Right.
was guilty. My old man was.
Right.
But so for yourself, how do you keep from doing those things? I mean, because you just said it, you're an endangered species. People want to go ahead and take your life from you, or make an example out of you. How do you, especially you're being convicted, which sounds like it was drug turf related. So they've got boys out there that are saying, "Oh, the court said that you the one that did, you're the trigger man. We need to go ahead and end this dude." How do you keep on alert? I mean, for something like that.
Well, I attribute all of that first and foremost to God Himself. The same way I attribute Oscar coming in on the case, Jeff coming in on the case. These guys are emissaries, and I attribute it to His protection and cloak alone that got me through that unscathed. Because the reality is that I was potentially stabbed in my eye with a pen. Oscar knows about that.
Yeah, it was while we were waiting for his case to be
yeah.
given a hearing. Yeah.
And that's all because someone wants you to get off the payphone so that they could use
Right.
it instead of you. They weren't willing to wait for 5 minutes for your slot time to finish.
Right. I've been jumped on the inside, all to my detriment itself. So, I had to be hands-on, physical when I needed to be.
You're a big boy.
I had to protect myself, of course. And, I had to protect myself. I had to become street savvy on the inside as well, staying away from the dangers such as gambling, staying away from the dangers such as drugs, owing any individual for commissary usages and things like that. These are the detriments of prison itself. And if you can stay away from these pitfalls, you survive.
Now, so I'm a big, as I said at the beginning, and I'm a big pusher of reform personally within the prison systems, because I think it's the way we do it is, I'll say it simple, it's fucking stupid. So have someone put away who never had an opportunity to do anything else, and not saying what happened with you, but we do nothing to prepare you for what's on the outside. And when you're released, from what I read, it sounds like you had a family system that was waiting for you, that supported you. But I know for a fact that a lot of guys come out and the only option for a home is a homeless shelter.
Yes.
So for yourself, now you had that. What do you see that, for that guy that doesn't have those things or wasn't as, and I know I'm using the term lucky, and brother, stay with me. But what are some of the things that you saw that you were like, why is this happening? Why is this not different? Or that you would say this needs to be changed as somebody who was right, who's trying to go on the out, who was coming on the outside. Does that question make sense?
Yes, of course. Well, there's razor blades in prison. This is what I call it. There's razor blades of prison. And what I mean by that is it's so easy for a razor blade to slice you straight down your back, and there's also stages. Your audience has to understand that there are stages of prison also. You have meaning you have central booking. When you're first arrested, you go through central booking, which is you're not fully you're not held as a prisoner because you haven't been formally charged. A complaint has been lodged against you, and now you're held for arraignment before a court of law. And then after that stage, you go to a housing unit. And this is the early 90s. You have to understand this, Sean, that this is the early 90s I'm speaking of, where you had borough housing units, Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens borough housing units. And then you had Rikers Island, another terror dome. These were all terror domes that you had to survive in. And then you went upstate after being fully and duly convicted of the crime. So if you survive all of that, as I did, you're blessed. There's no luck involved.
Wow.
So, and the other thing too is funny, Sean, is that like if you did the crime, when you get out, you're on parole. So you've got someone who can kind of, here's how you get Medicaid, here's how you get some public assistance, here's the shelter you could go to for a couple of days, and then we're going to get you some, single resident occupancy housing. And if you're in trouble, you got someone to call. When your conviction is vacated, you're exonerated.
You don't have any of that.
They just pack your bags and send you out there.
You don't have any of that.
Wait. So you're saying, okay, I got to roll this back here for a second. So they did you dirty, admitted to doing you dirty. I know there's some ramifications there for you, but they were basically like, my bad, dog. High five. Have a nice day. Yeah. Doors that way.
Yes.
Hey, sorry about all that.
My bad.
And then not everybody gets not everybody is automatically, well, no one's automatically compensated. Not everybody whose conviction is vacated is compensated. For example, the DA is appealing the hearing that we won. So Andre, even if he wanted to file a civil lawsuit, has to wait for that appeal to be decided. That's if everything goes perfectly, that's 2 years before he can even start a civil lawsuit. So
it's not automatic like, hey, here's the years we've exonerated you. Because I know some states have they have a formula.
Yeah, X per year. Not a lot, but something to get you on your feet.
Right. So
no. New York has nothing like that.
There's not a set in stone figure, but honestly, it's better that there's not, because each case is going to be different, and there's more money, frankly, if it's not set in stone, as opposed to say 50 million a year or 70 or 75. But I think the point that Oscar's making, which I agree with, is, look, not only is it not automatic, but there also is a definite time period between point of release and compensation. But that's not even really the place where Andre is, because his criminal case isn't finished.
Still pending.
Conviction's overturned. He's out, but the criminal case isn't finished because they're appealing. So should they lose that appeal, should that appeal be lost, he will be returned back to the inside.
All right, folks, look. Jeff's thing's at the bottom. It says it very clear. It's patreon.com/Deskovic. That you all can sit here in the state of New York with the Joker in office after the Lord Commander left, and whack job Giuliani that was down in the city, who, with the rest of them, and listen to me, they're all out of their mind. I watched the case out of Baltimore with what's his name, Saeed
Adnan Syed. Yeah, that was insane.
That's crazy what's happened there.
Which is just out of control. And if you know Baltimore, hey, here's one for you, Andre. You probably didn't know about this one because you and I are about the same age. Did you know at one point in time the BGF was so running Baltimore City prison that the head of it was locked up and got 2 female guards pregnant and was running the show in the whole lockup in Baltimore City. There's one for you. You want to talk about
Baltimore's no joke. It was no joke in the 90s either.
Oh, look, it's where I grew up at.
It's
Like,
very similar to New York, just less numbers,
but now,
but same type of situation.
did they at least, because I can't imagine what the psychological and emotional parts to this have been for you. Was there, you're telling people from the inside, hey, I'm innocent, I didn't do this, and everyone's like, yeah, that's what everybody says. You're hearing that. How did you cope with that? And then how have you been able to, on this side, continue to cope with that?
Well, on the inside, relatively, you're keeping your mouth quiet that you're innocent.
Oh, really?
Yes. In the beginning of my case, I didn't tell anybody as I came through prison that I was innocent. I moved forward in understanding the culture of prison, seeing the movement, understanding my place, how to keep my mouth quiet, how to utilize the phones, how to go to the chow hall, how to observe and seeing what I was seeing, whether it was on the visit floor, whether it was behind the bars, or the officers themselves and their conduct. And then, as I learned, because it took some time to learn about the law library, I started to adapt and become part of the prison culture at first. And what I mean by that is this, I've always been a street guy. So the story goes as on Rikers Island, they used to have dice, real dice, Sean. And we used to play CeeLo.
Okay.
We used to play CeeLo. And we used to play CeeLo in the back of HDM in 5 building. And, we used to gamble cigarettes, gamble well-breads, cookies, whatever you had, you brought it back there and we were playing dice for it. So one day I was coming out of my cell and a guy came to me. I remember this guy's face like it was yesterday. His name, I don't know, but he said, "Where are you going?" So I said, "What do you mean? I don't even know you. Who are you talking to?" He said, "I'm talking to you. Why do you think them guys like you? Or where are you going with those guys? Or what can they help you with?" I said, "Listen, old timer, why are you talking to me? I don't even know you. Why all these people around you talking to me?" He said, "Because I see something in you that they see, but they want something different from you." He said, "Tomorrow I'm coming to take you somewhere."
Oh, wow.
And when he said that to me, I looked at him. I didn't fight him anymore. But before I could even say, "Where are you taking me?" he said, "I'm taking you to the law library." And when he said that to me, it was the first time I ever heard of a law library, a library of law. And I went to the back, gambled, came back to the cell on lock-in, and I stood there and I thought to myself, what is this law library? So the next 4 o'clock session, when we're locked out in our intervals, when the guys was coming to me, they said, "Listen, Andre, what's up? We going back there to gamble. What's up? You coming?" I said, "I'm not going with you." They said, "What you mean you're not going with us?" I said, "Listen, I'm going to the law library," because I never heard this from them. These guys that were gambling and doing all these things, they never told me anything about a law library. And this man took me to a hole in the wall. And if you didn't know where this place was, you didn't belong there, because it was down a long hallway and it was a small crack in the side of a building with a room that could only fit about 15 men in there. And when he took me inside of that room, I stopped and I saw men hustling and bustling fast, but I didn't understand why until later on, because you're only given a limited amount of time in the law library, 1 hour. So you had to complete everything you could at that time and then prepare to come back the next day after putting in a call out. So these men were running back and forth, grabbing their books, and I'm watching. And he said, "Listen, do you see what's going on in here?" And I was absolutely quiet. And he took me to the desk. And when he took me to the desk, he told the clerk, "Give me that book right there." And at that time, Sean, we didn't have the LexisNexis computer system. All we had was a bunch of books. And he gave me one of the books and he said, look at the spine of this book. Do you see what that is? And as I looked, he said, you see that key? If you find that key in your case, you'll be out of prison. And that was the start of my fight.
And you don't know who this man was? Nothing.
No.
Like, you know his face.
No. Up until that point, I actually had been trusting in lawyers.
Andre, that's an angel, brother.
It was an angel. The same way Oscar's an angel today, the same way Jeff is an angel, it was an angel. Absolutely.
What I can tell you, by the way, Sean, like you said about a pattern, that's another pattern. When you say that, like, everyone in prison says they're innocent, the fact is that, most people cop to what they did, and they want the street cred for what they did.
Of course.
And the guys who are in the law library can tell a bullshitter better than anybody else.
Yes.
And so you get a reputation as like, you know what, this guy, he's putting in the time. He's being, serious about it. And he could be playing dice. He could be playing hoops. He could be doing all this fun stuff.
Right.
But he's in here spending his 1 hour out of his cell looking at a book, and you get to know each other. And of all the exonerations that I've done, not one of them did not find their peace, if you will, PEACE, in the law library. They all, Jeff too, they all gravitated towards the law library, and they all found it like on their own, one way or another. And that's another thing that just connects people, because if you're not really innocent, you're not going to sit in this musty room with 10 other guys and waste that hour where you could be having some fun, playing some cards, talking up a guard to try to get something better, a better job, go working out, going into the yard, so something. And that's another pattern that you see, is the importance of the law library in prisons to give people a chance to work on their own cases.
Yes.
That's something I was going to say, Andre, was I was going to ask you, so not telling people that you were innocent, that probably also helped protect you in the sense of, here's this dude, he's a punk, he's over here crying about, I didn't do it. Whereas you're sitting there going, I ain't saying a word. I know me, so that was probably helped to keep you a little safer also, would you say?
Definitely. A prison is not a place where you could trust people. Trust comes in increments, and as you grow trust, then you understand character, you understand integrity, you grow loyalties, and you also grow individuals in understanding their honor, who they are.
And even though he was even though he was a street guy, he'd never done state prison.
Never.
So this was not,
this was new. 23.
It was drug, minor drug sales. It's not like he was, robbing banks and shit like that. So, state prison is New York State prison. People think it's a liberal state.
No.
Our prisons are horrible, man. I don't know how Jeff or Andre did this, because I couldn't do 19 days for a crime I actually committed in New York State prison. Okay. Never mind 19 years for something you didn't do. This is no Club Fed. You know what I'm talking about? Every day is a challenge.
Every day is
a prison. These are max prisons, by the way. Both of them. Jeff, you were always in maxes, right?
I was always in a max prison. And look, anytime you leave your cell, you don't know if you're going to make it back.
Look how dangerous Jeff looks. He looks like a dangerous man. One of the nicest guys I know. Look, if you've never met Jeff, look Jeff up and watch Conviction. I mean, Jeff's one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life. And one of the, him and I, we've had dinner together. We've done stuff together. I mean, just one of the friendliest, nicest people you'll ever meet. And hopefully, Andre, we get him to get you up here to Smallbany with us this year when we do the Wrestling Hall of Fame, because I know Jeff will be up here with me. But one of the things that, and I'm going to kind of circle this around with Jeff a little bit, since we're talking about Jeff. When Jeff told me his story, he told me about how family had kind of abandoned him and had kind of walked away. Mom stuck by his side the entire time. She knew the truth. For yourself, I'm always curious of the family members that had kind of fallen to the wayside and had kind of written you off and said, oh, well, he did it because he was a street kid growing up. This is definitely him. Once that they found out, no, he was telling the truth the whole time. What were those interactions like?
I mean, Jeff always tells me now, Andre, be very careful. I look to Jeff as a brother. Oscar has been almost like a father in the law, a friend to me. These guys are more to me than just attorneys, and for me, I'm still wary. I've met more family coming home than I've seen coming to visit me,
It's amazing, isn't it?
and I don't know whether it's their thought patterns of compensation. I don't know. I have to be very, very, aware. But I embrace every individual because I want to build relationships, strong family. I have a very huge family, but the reality is, I know it was a core set that continuously came, continuously. And the
Always
rest
had
of
your
them
back.
always had my back, always believed me, always was there from day one, and continuously said, Andre's coming home.
That's amazing. Do you want to give anything to them, shout them out a little bit? I mean, it's
Of
up to you.
course, of course. I want to shout out my wife, Tamika Brown, of course. She's the one who actually got Oscar for me. I'm shouting out my cousin Marcel. I'm shouting out my brother Devon, my brother Jafari, Sean. I'm shouting out my cousin Latifa, my auntie Sharon, my auntie Annie. I'm shouting out both of my grandmothers, of course. One is 97, one is on the verge of being 90, Elmira Williams and Linda McCoy. My sister Monique. I'm shouting them all out because they were all there from the beginning. My son AJ and my stepdaughter Trinity. All of them fought like hell to get me out.
They held you down.
They held me down.
I mean,
Yeah,
and
that's important, man. That's just
and
gives you the hope.
Yeah, the outside support is a key. I didn't know that while I was incarcerated. Andre had that, so that's amazing.
I mean, and that's a big group, Andre. I mean, look, I mean that's huge. Like I said, I nothing like that. My old man, like I said, did a 1-year piece, in a detention center, like nothing like you're talking about. Now I gotta ask it. Now you get the news. Is there any way on God's green earth that you can explain? And I'm gonna ask, like, this is like trying to explain some of the toughest stuff in the world here. But how do you explain to somebody that feeling that, hey, boss, tomorrow you go home? Because I read about the rain and wanting to dance in the rain and everything. I read that, and I'm gonna tell you right now, in my feelings, and I am a man that goes to church every Sunday. I do the best I can. To me, that was the skies crying for you, brother.
Oh my God, that was
How
yeah.
do you explain that feeling though to people?
Listen, let's rewind a little bit, Sean, for you. The feeling I got when I first heard that we were granted a hearing. This is where the joy
Just a hearing.
just the hearing. I jumped so high, continuously pumping my fist in that cell quietly because I didn't want anybody to know what was going on. That's where the joys began. And then COVID hit, and fast forward, because that was a mission in of itself. And, Oscar will bring you up to speed on that. But the day that I was told, and it came through JPay, which is a system
I know, Jay.
that we were given a little tablet for the prisoners to communicate with their families.
And even that little bit has helped people so much, although it's very expensive.
Yes.
But it's just provided people connection.
And when I heard the news how I heard it was call me. It was not you're coming home. Call me. And this is Tamika, my wife, saying, you have to call me. So I go to the prison phone. I'm thinking, of course, it's an emergency. I'm not thinking, anything about a decision, anything like that. I'm thinking more so something is going on with family. Anytime she says, call me with such urgency, I'm thinking family matters. So she's like, call me. You have to call me. So I call and she's crying. So immediately, I'm concerned.
Or you think something's jacked up around the house.
Yeah. So, I'm questioning about the kids, family. She said, Andre, they denied the motion. So now I'm like, oh my God. Now I'm like, and she's crying. She's like, they denied the actual innocence and the newly discovered. So now I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm thinking about the next 20 years because I had done 23 and I received a consecutive sentence. So I had just finished one sentence and I had just started a new one, 3 years into my new 20-year sentence. So then she says, but they granted the ineffective assistance of counsel. And I felt so relieved. I started jumping on the phone. So the guys around me is looking at me like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Well, I'm jumping and I let the phone go and I'm jumping. And then I go back on the phone, but I'm not saying anything. So the guys are like, they're thinking, because they know I've been going back and forth to court. So they're like, he must be going home. So they're like, what's going on? I said, oh, my son, he's scoring. This guy is like, he's going to the NBA. He just scored another 20 points, and they're like, because I had been telling them continuously, as Oscar and Jeff knows, my son is a phenomenal basketball player at the age of 12. So they were like, oh, okay. And then I went back on the phone with Tamika. I said, listen, I'm going inside. I can't stay out here. I wanted to get in that cell. I wanted to get in that cell so fast in order to just get away from everything.
Collect yourself.
Well, no, not have any problems. People get jealous, Sean. This is a max prison, right? Not everybody's nice and got a beautiful smile like Andre.
Right.
Okay, there's just some nasty lifers there who got nothing to lose. It's like you're getting out. Like the exoneration that I did before Andre was a guy named Cal Buari, and because of a snafu, the judge let him out on a Friday. He had to go back upstate. You can't be released from the court. You got to go back to state prison. They got to cut you from state prison. They don't release you on a Saturday or Sunday. So he had to spend the weekend, and he knew that there was going to be news about it. People were going to know that he was out. He was going to be out. He spent that weekend. He didn't even leave for meals.
Oh, no shit.
He's like, I am staying I am 48 hours. I am not leaving this cell.
Yes.
I'm not going for a meal. He was like, I can't take a chance.
I didn't leave.
No, I don't blame you guys. I
didn't leave myself.
I get it. So, I knew this was coming. I love my Nate. And as we always say, folks, we're gonna get ready to close the bar up. There's so much in here, Andre. Like, I feel like I could do like 3 shows with you because I want to know how you met your wife. I want to know, like, there's some. Like, I'm not trying to get like into your business, but I mean, you talking about you got a 12-year-old son.
Figure it out, Sean.
Look,
figure it out.
There's math in there that I'm like,
yes.
like where did? Okay, so there's something there. But my man Nate, we love Nate. Nate and I have been partners for a minute. He's got an important question because this is a Nate question. What was the first food you wanted to eat when you got out?
Oh man, Jeff, Oscar, my wife Tamika, Sabine, they took me to a great little eatery, and I wanted to eat surf and turf.
Really? Just surf and turf?
Just surf and turf. Yes, that's what I wanted.
Did you, Jeff? Unmute yourself, Jeffrey. Did you take him to good surf and turf?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I didn't select the restaurant. That was Oscar, but I agreed to it. He ran the idea by me, and I agreed with it. To it.
Jeff knows good food. Jeff knows good
food. We took some great pictures. He had a real meal. Andre ordered for a drink. He had a virgin margarita, I believe it was.
Virgin pina colada.
That's right. There we go.
Yeah, virgin pina colada.
Yeah, but it was, oh my God.
I'm not a big coconut person, but yeah. I get it. I mean, as you say that as I'm sitting here drinking Whistle Pig Piggyback 100% rye. Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah.
You know,
he didn't want his senses. He didn't want his senses dulled.
Yeah, and I had to ask Oscar, you know, listen, how do I get my steak done? I had been so used to eating prison food. You know, the reality is prison food is something that you hate. It's putrid.
I want to read, Sean, I want to take the liberty. It's your show. I want to read a comment that's made by Robert Majors. By the way, Robert is an exoneree from Queens who did 20 years, was exonerated, and he's made the comment, it's great to see you out, Andre. Jeffrey's a godsend to people like us. Want to shout Robert Majors out.
Of course.
20 years. Quick human interest item at the celebration meal. At the celebration meal, I called up somebody that also was innocent, had been exonerated, that knew Andre while he was on the inside. Fernando Bermudez,
definitely
a man who was exonerated in a non-DNA case in Manhattan after 18 years, who had been misidentified by 5 people. He was, you know, he was out of state. We were not able to. He couldn't join us, so I called him on WhatsApp video call, and I handed Andre the phone so that they could talk and have a.
And Sean, think about that. When he went in, we had a landline in the kitchen. We had a beeper.
Right. Like
now he's in a restaurant, like Dick Tracy doing a video call.
Well, look, Andre and I were talking, and I'm like, "Hey, man, do you have any social media I can tag in so people are able to find you on this and blah blah blah?" And he's like, Murph, I'm a Flintstone. You trying to bring me to be a Jetson? And, and we so I know. Look, we in that same wheelhouse, so I knew exactly what he meant. I'm like, yeah, nah, bro, I got you.
I just created that, and you know, I got 11 followers. I'm still asking people, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? I don't know how to do Instagram. I don't know how to do all these.
I'm gonna make you a deal. You know, you probably have never been up here to Smallbany yet. I'm gonna make you a deal. If Jeffrey gets you up here, I got some things going on. But when we get up here, I'm gonna take you for tiny hot dogs. Have you had Albany got these? Look, Oscar, you see you down there in the city too much. Oscar, you gotta come get cultured out where there's some culture at up here in Albany. And Jeff knows what I'm talking about. Like, that's the thing up here is like these hot dogs, like they're about like 3 inches long, and they have a bun that they fit in. And they put meat sauce with onions. Look,
I'm in.
Like, that's an Albany thing. This
is a great bar food, man.
And they're always at these little like diner places. And there's another spot that we go to that's in Watervliet, New York, that we love. And they do a Greek burger. It's a sausage patty with peppers and onions. Listen, there's a fat kid that lives in my soul. He's always trying to eat. Andre and I was in the law library on a regular basis. He worked there, so we seen each other very much. Robert, I would love to hear your story. Maybe we'll get you on. We'll talk about that if you're comfortable with it, brother. I just look, folks, this is one of those things that we all jump to conclusions. We all think we fucking know. I'm sorry for my language, but I get very passionate about this. We think we know. You think you saw it. I always go back to Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you don't know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, go check him out. He's a physicist. He's an extremely intelligent man. If he tells you 2 + 2 is green, go with it. I'm just going to explain it in that way. And I always think about something he said. He was called to be a juror. Look it up. He talks about it often. He was called to be a juror one time. And the judge said, you know, is there any reason that you shouldn't be a juror? He said, well, Your Honor, I understand the way the human eye and brain work, and I'm not comfortable with witnesses because of how it works. And the judge turned around and said, oh, so one person, you know, you wouldn't trust one person's opinion. The other juror in front of him, and I'm probably getting the story a little screwed up, the person in front of him said, no, Your Honor, what the genius scientist just said was the human eye is not trustworthy, and people make mistakes on things they see. And they finally stopped it and was like, and they let him off of there and told him, he had they let him out.
Mhm.
This is what Andre dealt with. This is exactly it. Somebody thought they saw something and it wasn't real. It wasn't there. It wasn't part of it.
Yeah. Well, someone planned to, and what happens is, there was a rumor on the street because the eyewitness didn't come forward until a day and a half, 2 days later. And so it starts to build in your mind, and plus the weird thing, like Jeff had mentioned at the beginning, Sean, the actual perpetrator could have been Andre's double, same height, same weight, but also extremely similar face.
Oh, shit.
And so they even looked like each other.
I've learned about aunts and uncles that I didn't know. My grandfather was an old pimp. I'd tell you that story another time. They always said there was more women crying at my grandfather's funeral than they do.
Well, speaking of pimping, I want to do a totally shameless plug right now.
Oh my God!
What a totally shameless plug!
What a segue!
I love Jeff.
Yeah. So listen, on April 22nd, in Hudson, New York, which is in the Albany area, the foundation's having our first gala dinner. There's an Eventbrite link on it. And if you want to meet Andre in person, if you want to meet me in person, there's going to be other exonerees. As I understand it, Oscar's going to be joining us as well. So if you want to come and see us in person, it's going to be very informal. There'll be a short speaking thing, but the main thing is you're going to get a chance to mix and mingle. So if you want to meet, talk with any of us and plenty of other exonerees, please purchase a ticket and come up there and check us out. The money's going to go towards freeing, additional people like Andre. I mean, Oscar and I have like 5 cases going together.
Yep.
Not, but there's another 11. There's another 11 that are approved, but we simply don't have the bandwidth or capacity to move. So, we need to certainly raise money and to be able to bring in additional manpower, and so we can get moving on these cases. So all the money goes towards freeing people.
And let me say this to them, Jeff.
Aimed at preventing this. None of it goes into my pocket. No how, no way. Matter of fact, It costs me money to do this, but it's where my heart is.
Look, let me say this to you guys. We need you guys. The reality is Jeff and Oscar are the angels that are sent, but the workload that they have is tremendous. There's not attorneys like them out there. There's not individuals willing to take pro bono cases. These attorneys want tons of money. I wrote hundreds, thousands of letters, and all of them were denied, and they didn't want to help me. And I showed them the proof that I was innocent. So if you can give anything, please give towards the foundation. Help Jeff, help Oscar as he's general counsel to the foundation, to help men like me who are wrongfully convicted. And they're looking for the help of these attorneys. They're looking for men who are willing to hear their cases, because there's a saying that I have that justice is blind, but it has the ears to hear the cries of the people. You are the people, and we need you crying out. We need you crying out to the courts, to anybody that's willing to hear these men, because their voices are muted.
Amen, brother. Now, look, we're going to get ready to close the bar up here. The Eventbrite link, I'm going to put that in the show notes for this. So, folks, you'll be able to see that in the show notes. Robert, you heading down to Florida for a while, man. Send me a plane ticket, brother. We'll hang out together. I'm going to. Jeff sent me a note. I would be going. I'm headed out to Dallas for a week or so here coming up, so I won't be able to make it. But listen, folks, if you've got the money, you've got the availability. The Patreon is patreon.com/Deskovic, DESKOVIC. This is those things that I tell everyone. Don't turn a blind eye. Don't believe everything that you see. Not to quote a pain in the ass, but sometimes it is fake news. Understand that these things happen. And if you know anything about major cities in the 90s. We were all jacked up like football bats. Listen to me. And they were trying to find ways to deal with it. So they just locked everybody up and they'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Especially in New York City, where Giuliani magically got the homeless people to disappear. Wonder how he did that.
And where'd they go?
And Pataki.
Oh, Pataki?
Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't no better. So listen to me, folks. So make sure you're reaching out. You're supporting these guys, looking them up. They've all got their social media. Oscar, everything is his name. It's Oscar Michelen, Michelen. You can find Oscar. Jeff's got the Jeff Deskovic Foundation. He's on social media by Jeffrey, and his Jeffrey is REY. You can find Jeffrey. Andre is on Instagram at Andre Brown 777. Give him a follow. Give him a little bit of love. Make sure he knows that he's got supporters out there. If you know somebody that you think would be a great guest for the show, somebody that we could have on here, please make sure you reach out to me. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Everything is the Above the Bar podcast. If you know somebody that, look, I got 2 lawyers. Any of you guys know a First Amendment guy or a constitutional? I would love to talk to somebody about this whole TikTok thing, because it makes me laugh recently when I watched this whole thing where they're like, TikTok's misinforming everyone. And I'm going, do we watch the regular news? Do you watch the news?
I'm with you, Sean, in that. I was embarrassed at some of the questions they were asking the CEO.
God, it made me laugh. I'm like, I watched that, and that's a whole nother show in and of itself.
Yes, we could do a whole thing on there.
A whole show on that, because I laughed so much. They're like, TikTok's misinforming people. And I'm like, I watch CBS, which I love, and I can't think of the anchor's name right now, who 2 separate times was brought up on charges for falsifying information that he was bringing in front of the news. So let's not talk about how mainstream is so much better. So if you know anybody knows a constitutional lawyer that would love to come on here and talk to me about First Amendment and how TikTok thing is just a load of BS, I would love to talk to them. I think that show would put me into the stratosphere, because nobody wants to talk about that, and I don't give a shit. So make sure you're reaching out. As always, we're on everything: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Next week, I got to double check myself, but I think Nate's back with us next week. We're talking. Look, this is so you gentlemen know we go all over the place with this show. Let me double check. Oh no, it's Jim Fritz next week. This is Andre. Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer is the book that he wrote. He was a big time drug dealer in the 90s and 80s. And this is Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer. Next week, it's Jimmy Fritz. I know Nate's coming up. As we do on every show, I'm assuming that you gentlemen knew this, but I love putting people on the spot. Before we end the show, we have one rule around here. The guests, and don't log off afterwards. I have to talk to you gentlemen afterwards. The guest always gets the final word. So we're going to go around the same way we started it. We're going to go around. Oscar, what's your final word for tonight?
Freedom.
Jeff?
Freedom.
Oh, that's 2 for 2. Andre, what's your final word for tonight?
Freedom is a must.
All righty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.